Alright, picture the year 2007. There's a company in a tiny Nordic country that just sold 437 million phones in a single year. Not computers, not apps, phones. More than one in every 3 sold on the entire planet had its name on the back. Over 1 billion people were carrying one in their pocket right now. It was called Nokia, and at its peak, it was worth $250 billion, the most valuable company in all of Europe. 6 years later, it sold its entire phone business for scraps and walked away. So how does the most dominant phone maker in human history, a company that owned the future, lose almost all of it in under a decade? This is the rise and fall of Nokia. So where does a story like this even start? Believe it or not, with paper. 1865. A Finnish engineer named Fredrik Eidestam builds a wood pulp mill on the banks of a river in a town called Nokia. That's it. That's the company. For the next 100 years, Nokia made paper, then rubber boots, car tires, electrical cables, televisions. At one point, it even made gas masks and generators. It was a boring, sprawling industrial conglomerate from a country most of the world couldn't find on a map. And then, in the early 1990s, a new leader named Jorma Ollila made one of the boldest bets in corporate history. He looked at this strange, expensive new gadget, the mobile phone, and he decided to sell off almost everything else. The boots, the tires, the cables, gone. Nokia was going all in on a device most people didn't even own yet. It was a gamble that should not have worked. It worked spectacularly. In 1992, Nokia launched the 1011, one of the world's first mass-market digital phones. By 1998, this company from a nation of 5 million people had passed Motorola to become the best-selling phone brand on Earth. Now here's where it gets almost hard to believe. By the year 2000, Nokia wasn't just successful, it was a phenomenon. $250 billion in value, the most valuable company in Europe. And in Finland, Nokia was practically the economy. 4% of the entire country's output, a fifth of all its exports. One company. Then came the phone that turned Nokia into a legend. The Nokia 3310. Internally, they projected they might sell 20 million of them. They sold 126 million. It was nearly indestructible. People still joke that it could survive being dropped off a building. It had a little game called Snake that an entire generation was addicted to. And that 4-note Nokia ringtone, for years, it was the most played piece of music on the planet, heard over 1 billion times a day. At the peak, roughly 40% of every mobile phone sold anywhere in the world was a Nokia. This is the top of the mountain. And when you're standing this high, standing this certain, you stop watching the ground. Okay, here's the part almost nobody knows. Long before Apple existed in phones, Nokia saw it coming. Nokia engineers built a working touchscreen phone prototype around the year 2000. They designed a tablet-style internet device in 2001, years ahead of the iPhone and the iPad. Nokia literally invented the future in its own labs. And then it killed it. Why? Fear. Fear that these new devices would eat into the products that were printing money right now. Why risk the empire you have for one you're not sure exists? Then, June 2007, Steve Jobs walks onto a stage and holds up the iPhone. And Nokia's leadership shrugs. A toy, a niche, too expensive, too fragile, no keyboard, it'll never scale. We've been doing this for decades. They can't touch us. But underneath that confidence was something rotten. Researchers, who later interviewed dozens of Nokia's own managers, found the company paralyzed by fear. Temperamental bosses at the top, terrified middle managers below them. Too scared to deliver bad news, too scared to say the software was falling behind. Engineers warned, for years that Nokia's operating system couldn't compete. They were ignored. The company knew it was losing and was too afraid to say it out loud. While Nokia sat frozen, Apple and Google weren't selling phones. They were building ecosystems, app stores, developers, a whole world living inside the device. And Nokia had nothing to answer it with. By 2011, the fire was impossible to ignore. Nokia's new CEO, Stephen Elop, sent an internal memo to his staff. It leaked almost immediately, and it became one of the most famous documents in business history. In it, he told his own employees the truth. Nokia, he wrote, was standing on a burning platform. He admitted it plainly. We fell behind, we missed big trends, and we lost time. The battle, he said, was no longer about devices. It had become a war of ecosystems, and Nokia didn't have one. His solution was a desperate, all-or-nothing bet. Kill Nokia's own software, abandon it completely, and tie the company's entire future to Microsoft's Windows Phone. It failed, almost completely. Without apps, without developers, without buyers, Windows Phone never caught fire, and the numbers tell the whole story. In 2007, Nokia had nearly half the entire smartphone market. By 2013, it had under 5%. The value just evaporated. From $250 billion down almost 98%. And in September 2013, it happened. Nokia sold its entire phone business, the empire, the brand, the factories, to Microsoft for about $7 billion. A company once worth $250 billion sold for the kind of number it used to earn in profit in a single year. And here's the brutal ending. Just 2 years later, Microsoft admitted the whole thing was a mistake. It wrote off $7.6 billion, more than it paid, and cut nearly 8,000 jobs. The Nokia phone, the device that had lived in 1 billion pockets, was simply switched off. So what actually killed Nokia? It wasn't Apple, it wasn't Google, it wasn't even a bad bet on Microsoft. In the end, Nokia was killed by Nokia. Think about what really happened here. This was a company that saw the future coming. It built the future, the touchscreen, the mobile internet, with its own engineers in its own labs, years before anyone else. It didn't lack money, it didn't lack talent, it didn't even lack the idea. What it lacked was the courage to destroy its own success before someone else did. It was so busy protecting the empire it had, it refused to build the empire it needed. Fear at the top, silence in the middle, and a comfort so deep it felt like safety. Right up until it wasn't. And there's one final twist. Nokia never actually died. Look closely and you'll find it. Quieter now, out of your pocket and behind the scenes. Building the 5G networks that the entire modern world runs on. The company survived. The empire that put a phone in 1 billion hands did not. That's the uncomfortable lesson underneath all of this. Your greatest strength, held on to too tightly, becomes the exact thing that takes you down. The market doesn't reward what you used to be. If you want more stories of giants that fell, subscribe. The next one might be a company you have in your pocket right now. And tell me in the comments, who should we cover next?